super important. What do the very best portfolios do? I'm going to ask you guys, Jihun, if anyone wants to ask, can write, or Jihun, what do you think the very best portfolios do? Well, I'm going to write it in chat. What do the best portfolio? I kind of want you to think about this. Anyone? What do the best portfolios do? Okay. Maybe showing you're thinking through a project. Okay, great. Thank you. Whoever that is, I can't read Korean. Your potential. Okay, great. Yeah, it doesn't need to show your finished thing. It shows what your potential is. Absolutely. That's a great statement. And it needs to show you, okay? It needs to show your unique voice, your personality. Okay, it doesn't need to be super finished. The process, the thinking of your portfolio is super important. I will show you some examples of student portfolios later, and it kind of is better to see those, I think. Yeah, follow the instructions. 15 to 20 pages actually is really too much. I honestly think 10 or 12 is perfect. You can be very rich in 10 or 12 slides. You need to also show some explanation of what the project is. What is the context of this work? What did you learn? What did you want to explain? Oops, sorry. Yeah, decent quality images, that's important. And this is an important thing, having a logical flow from start to finish. So it is a story. You are creating a narrative. You're introducing yourself to the world, and you'll do this throughout your creative career. Is explain who you are in a story. It needs to have a little bit of drama. You need to play with scale. You need to play with the number of images on the page. You could have one very strong image, and then another slide could have smaller images. So you can actually be very creative in the design of your portfolio. You can have process work, but display it well, so people can see that you are considering design. So if you look at illustration as a topic, and it's good that you are all interested, some of you interested in illustration. I am particularly. Drawing is super important, but we want to see experimental approaches to drawing. So not necessarily photographic realism, okay? You know, making something look super realistic. I mean, it's okay to copy work, but we want to see you just experimenting a little bit more with medium. A little bit of understanding of what's going on in contemporary illustration. Maybe having some discussion about cultural issues. You might love nature. You want to protect the environment. All these things are very, very useful. We want to understand your philosophy, maybe your politics in a way. We want to see your wonder and your curiosity in your portfolio. School projects are fine, but we love to see you being self-initiated. And sketchbooks are king. And I'll come to sketchbooks later. We love to see you drawing in your sketchbook. And that does imply that that's definitely relevant to most courses. We want to see your daily practice of collecting ideas for whatever you're studying, really. If you're an architect, we want to see your obsession with place, space, people's interaction with their environment, all these things. It might even be texture, might be pattern, color, everything that interests you, okay? And you can I'll show you some examples later. You can really explain. Mistakes that we might make are just a lack of rigor in terms of maybe not, we don't want to see just the finished thing. We want to see the thinking. We want to read what the project is, okay? We want to explain that this is research. This isn't my work. Sometimes a student will put examples of influences in their portfolio. We want to read what the project is or what the context is, okay? When we say aesthetics are nice, it doesn't need to be super finished work, but the ideas are more important. And as I think Jihun, you said earlier, want to say, want to see your potential, okay? Lots of ideas are better than one finished thing. I'm constantly writing down ideas in my diary on a daily basis that might work and might not work. Okay, so we want to see your potential, definitely. You need to present your work well. I'll come to that later. And then putting too many pieces in. I had a student recently that had 50 slides. It doesn't, okay, they're hardworking, but it doesn't help us. We can kind of tell within about 3 slides if a student's got it. Okay, hard work is one thing, but your curiosity, intelligence, experimentation, all these things are considered super important. Okay, you will learn to develop. I mean, I've had a lot of experience with Korean students, and I know automatically Korean students are incredibly hardworking. Course leaders in the UK adore Korean students. They actually say, can we have more Korean students because they're brilliant? So hard work's one thing. You don't need to show that you're hardworking. We know you are already. So not too many pieces, not too many. Document your work to the highest standard. So we don't want to see messy photographs, bad scans, scanning on your phone, like using a cam scanner. It's better to photograph well or scan well. If you're photographing an artwork, make sure it's lit nice and evenly, or use professional lighting, say for a sculpture or 3D piece. Make it nice and clean. We don't want to see clutter in the background. We just want to see the work. And it's the same with the portfolio. Don't show us the theme of a PowerPoint presentation. It can be distracting from the work itself. A nice clean background. And sketchbooks, I keep on going back to these. It's what I love doing myself. I encourage students to do that. There's so many different ways you can display your sketchbooks. You can have, when I say only 10 or 12 slides, one slide might contain 30 images or 20 images or so of your sketchbooks, just showing your daily practice or your travel journals, your working out, your experimentation. This is an illustration, one of my students actually, just one slide of their exploratory drawing. Yeah, fantastic. We can see that they're interested in story and relationships and just good drawing of elements, experimenting a little bit with technique. Okay, and but you know, maybe some notes, bit of writing, all of these things. This is a more sort of graphic design or visual communication sketchbook, so kind of very clean. We've got strong symbolic images, nicely presented, and just a few ideas, okay, with an interesting style. We're not looking for a style though, but another graphic design student, and they're really experimenting with typography with illustration. Okay, so the type is almost illustration. Okay, very bold, black and white, strong, interesting marks and ideas. Okay, so for a graphic design portfolio, you can show your observational drawing. Typography is just drawing. Yeah, the letter forms, we read them, whether they're Korean or they're the Roman alphabet or the Chinese typefaces, the character design of Chinese. They're all drawings, they're all symbols, and so for graphic design, it's important that you do show your dexterous skills. How do we use our hands? Okay, and if you're stuck for your portfolio, please go and look at it or stand back from it, get advice, look at the flow. We talked about the story, the flow of your portfolio. What is it saying about you? What needs to be removed? Often it's not doing extra, it's actually taking things out that's more important. And by taking things out, you can kind of see what's strong and maybe do a little bit more work in a particular area on one particular slide. So look at the bigger picture, get advice, but get advice from people that matter, people who are positive, people who are creative, people who've had experience, not necessarily your friends or your close relatives, because they will look at the work through a lens of their relationship with you, not from their past experience. Okay. And just to reiterate, it is quality, it isn't quantity. Like I said, we know you're working hard. We want to see quality. Remember, course leaders have very little time to see every portfolio. Okay, we will have hundreds of portfolios to go through each year, and we see a lot of portfolios that are the same. I can honestly say that. That might be following a certain fashion, but a student that demonstrates great skill, really interesting, passionate, original thoughts, that'll stick out. So make sure that you do say who you are in that portfolio. Okay, and you might need to do more work. I honestly think that a good portfolio can make a massive difference to a student's career. It can help with scholarship. It can guarantee a place on a course. It can be a learning process in itself. It isn't just to get onto a course. It is what we do for the rest of our lives, is show the world how we present. Okay. And like I said, you know, the American art school will look at all of the work on one slide. Okay. So we can see this is a graphic design student. It's very solid, very clear. In a way, some colleges in the United States, going back to what I was saying earlier, they might not even want to have any drawing as such. Okay, they just want to see your design aesthetic. It might just be photography. It might be just shapes and forms. They're almost abstract in a way. As for digital submissions, because you're remote, we're not seeing a physical portfolio. Just make sure the images aren't too large, but make sure they're high resolution. Okay. So not massive files. We don't want to have a portfolio that's, and students do this. I have 1 gigabyte portfolios. It can be very small, but high resolution. Okay. Try it on different computer systems. Be careful of password protection. All